Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. I should probably call this video Watch Me Blow Up My Tube Amp because my buddy created this for me. He made this for me. This is a load box. It's a silent load box that he made that we're going to basically plug in an amp that he made also for me into it. So hopefully if I do blow it up, he'll know how to fix it. He also recommended that I try this DI box to basically take the output of the tube amp head into my audio interface, and then inside of there I'm going to use some IRs to actually get a cabinet sound going, get a sound going. So this all came about because, as you probably have seen on my channel, I use the Line 6 Stomp a lot to record because it's just also convenient, and also at night I can just plug in and kind of silently record. Well, we're going to try to replicate that same type of idea but with a real tube amp. So as you probably know, if you don't know, a tube amp obviously needs to have a load on it, or the whole transformers, I believe, will blow up inside of the tube amp. I'm not an expert at this, folks, and I would recommend that if you're going to try this at home yourself, that you proceed with your own caution, because I could be telling you really crazy information, but this is what I've learned thus far. So the idea is that when an amp comes out, it has to relieve itself of all of that power that it has into it, into some sort of a load. In that case, generally, it's obviously your speaker cabinet. So that information is coming out through your speaker, and that's where the load is being kind of relieved from. So in this case here, we're going to be using this silent load box to kind of accomplish the same thing. But obviously, I'm not going to hear anything in the room that like I normally would have to do. And I have to tell you, this tube amp that I have is modeled after a Brownface Deluxe amp, and it's about 22 watts, so it's pretty loud. So I'm really kind of excited about this, the possibility of me not having to hide it in the closet like I usually do to record because it's so loud in the room that I can't hear anything, and just hook it up to this thing. And then, like I said, we're going to run it out through this DI box into the audio interface. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing hooked up, and we'll go ahead and I'll show you a diagram of what I'm doing, of how I'm hooking up, because that's something also that he created for me, so I can share that with you. And hopefully, again, we're not going to blow up the tube amp, but it should be interesting. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's take a look at the wiring and how things are set up. Again, just thank you to my buddy so much for putting this together. He's so thoughtful, but also so detail-oriented, and I guess he just wants to make sure I don't blow up the amp. So, signal path, let's take a look. Obviously, we have our guitar that we're going to plug into a real amp. He loves orange amps. So we're plugging it into the real amp here. And then from the amp speaker out, so when you have a speaker out of your amp, again, this kind of has to usually go to the speaker itself for that load that I was talking about. Well, we're going to bypass that here with the DI box. So we're going to take the speaker out into the DI in, and then the DI out, we can do two things. We can either go to the silent load that he's created for me, which is what we're going to do in this experiment, or we can go right out into a speaker. So why I'm showing this to you is that you don't need that fancy silent load box that I have. You actually can go ahead right to your speaker as well, and then do the same thing that I'm going to do inside of my DAW, which is use IRs. So two ways you can use this wonderful DI box, and I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below to the DI box that I'm using, but you can just look them up. I'm sure there's others available to you. All right, so again, let's real quickly. Speaker out from the amp into the DI in, the DI out. In this case, we're going to take it to a load box, basically a silent load for the complete silent recording. And then your outputs, your XLR outputs on your interface. I don't know why I paused there. XLR output on your interface. You're going to go ahead and bring that into your line on your audio interface, and that's what we're going to do. So, and he put a recommendation here: aim for about minus 18 dB on the input meter when you're doing that. So obviously the idea is to give yourself enough headroom that you're not blowing the signal and distorting it. All right, so this is the setup. Let's do the moment of truth. Okay, folks, the moment of truth. Hopefully we hooked up everything correctly and we're not going to blow up this amp. This is the what we call the Jingle Hammer Brownie amp. It's based off of the, again, Brownface Fender Deluxe amp. And now the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and turn this on. I'm a little nervous. Here we go. Okay, I think we did it. We didn't blow up the amp. Let's go ahead and jump into the computer and let's see what this thing sounds like. All right, folks, we are off and running. So I went ahead in Logic and I created a track, obviously, And I chose the input to be the DI box. So obviously the amp going into the DI box, into my interface, into input 2. And that's what we have. We have sound. We have sound going on. And I'm trying to hover those, like he mentioned, hovering around minus 18 dB. So obviously that we have a sound, but it sounds gnarly, right? It's nothing fancy or good. That's because it's the actual head of the amp directly going into the interface. So we don't have any speaker or cabinet emulation happening right now. I know there are some free IRs on the market, so you can use those. You can actually probably do this whole thing pretty inexpensive. Again, in the diagram we saw, we could go directly out from the amp into the DI box and then split it back to your speaker. So if you just wanted that DI box, I think that one new was like $33 or something like that. You probably could find them even cheaper than that on Reverb. So anyway, we have that cheap setup happening right now, and free IRs would be even cheaper. I believe though, I have installed on here Amplitude. And I think that this either comes in a trial version or there's a free version that has this. And what I like about this is I had at one point set something up. Here we go. For the other amp, I had the Jingle Hammer itself is just your normal deluxe. It's not the brown face deluxe. It's the 50s model deluxe. So anyway, I have that set up, and we can see here that this amp, I have it turned off, obviously, because all I really want is the cabs. So here I'm choosing the 1x12 57 custom cab that would be normally on that amp, and 2 microphones. And the reason why I like this software a lot is because you also get to choose room speakers. So you can see here I have 2 speakers. I can choose one if I want to. I have 2 in this case here, but I also have these room mics, and that really adds so much to your sound. We discovered this if you were watching the tone chasing series that I did on AC/DC, where just a little bit of that room ambiance, I guess, to the sound really made a 3D type of sound. So I think this is also why that Universal Audio Aux is so popular, because people really love the interface that it has. And that's a load box as well as an attenuator, plus the software like you're kind of seeing here that actually has a room mics built into it as well. And I think they, obviously have, cabs and room mics, but I think that's why people are saying that they really like that product a lot, because it has the room mics. And I can tell you that it really makes a difference on your guitar tone. So I have that going on. So that's nice. We have these 2 things happening here. Let's go and check now the levels. Now we have more of a normal type of guitar sound. Well, this is great. So obviously I have to do some more experimenting and playing with this a little bit, but right off the bat, it's really nice. And I have that kind of the feeling when I'm playing of the amp itself. When I dig in, it's a little darker. Anyway, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to recording with this now. Well, that was it. We didn't blow up the amp, so that's a good sign. Actually, it's a very, very interesting experience. I really enjoyed it. Hope that you found some value in this video. And if you did, please do me a favor and consider supporting the channel for free by subscribing down below and hitting the like button. All these things help me out, and I'm, again, very grateful for your support. As always, I wish you an amazing day.